Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. My name is Adrian Nelson and I am your MC for today. We would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri and the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation and also pay our respects to elders past, present and future, and extend that respect to all Indigenous Australians present today. Welcome to our hybrid meeting, to those online and to those in the room. Thanks today will be given to Philip Cornish, who is waiting online. Yes. Followed by the loyal toast presented by President Reg. So please ensure your glass is charged. Over to you, Philip.
Thanks. So just carrying on the hybrid theme, I'm actually standing in Shepparton, greeting you from the beautiful lands of Yorta Yorta people, where I'm currently working with Kalia Arts, a community managed Indigenous art gallery co-located with New Shepparton Art Museum. No wonder then that I'm thinking of following up with a mention by our Mayor last week about the creative industries in Melbourne and the near regions. We have much to enrich our perspectives and nourish the soul. I'm privileged to be working in a physical space which the Victorian Minister for Arts at the opening of the precinct on Saturday described as one of the most significant Indigenous art spaces in the world. And we do not need reminding that the creative folks need our support after such a long time at home. For the chance to experience the work of these creatives in the great reawakening city that we're in and the near regions, I'm most grateful. Thank you.
Okay, Rotarians, guests, a toast to Australia and Rotary International. Australia, Rotary International. Members, visitors and guests, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to our 21st meeting of this Rotary year and our 4,917th club meeting in our 101st year. It's wonderful to see you all here today, especially those attending online, and we do have a number of us online today. Thank you and welcome everyone. Our guest speaker today is District 9800 Governor Dale Hoy. Dale is here for the annual District Governor's visit to the club, accompanied by his wife Maureen. Also here is Mandy Wendt, District Governor-elect, and her partner Greg Harbour. And on a return visit, this time as our guest, we have Assistant Governor of the Batman Cluster, Murray Anderson, and my wife, Sue. Would you please acknowledge and make all our district guests and Sue welcome. This week, as we do in each November, we're highlighting the good work of the Rotary Foundation. Today, we have as our guests District 9800 Peace Fellow alumni Peter Pell and Dr. Tanya Militek. We will be hearing from both shortly. Peter will be reporting on his experience and Tanya will be recognised by the club with a Paul Harris Fellow. Tanya's guest is colleague Professor John Langmore, Chair of the Initiative for Peace Building at the University of Melbourne. Would you please acknowledge and make these guests welcome in the usual way? And I believe that we do not have any visitors and guests today other than those that I've named. Okay, let's move to the Paul Harris Fellow. The Paul Harris Fellow is named for Paul Harris, who founded Rotary with 3 business associates in Canberra in Chicago in 1905. Where did Canberra come from? The Paul Harris Fellow was established in his honour in 1957 to express appreciation for a contribution of US $1 million to support humanitarian educational programs of the Rotary Foundation, funded and implemented and managed by Rotarians and Rotary clubs around the globe. It is the tradition of this club that the naming of a Paul Harris Fellow is based upon the contribution of individual members and deserving members of the community who practice the Rotary motto, service above self. Today, we recognise the efforts of Tanya Militek, who's just walked in, I know, after horrendous transportation here, and I'm going to ask her to the podium shortly, but just relax right now, Tanya, because what I'm going to do is read Tanya's citation. Tanya is the Assistant Director of the newly formed Initiative for Peace Building within the University of Melbourne's Arts Faculty, working to promote multidisciplinary research, teaching and policy development that supports effective engagement in conflict prevention and peace building in the Indo-Pacific region. Tanya is a Senior Research Fellow in the School of Social and Political Sciences and an experienced academic, educator and practitioner, translating research into policy and practice in conflict prevention and peace building in the Indo-Pacific region. The Rotary Centres for International Studies in Peace and Conflict Resolution were conceived in 1997 to honour the Paul Harris Fellow on the 50th anniversary of his death. The first class of 66 fellows began their studies in 2002, and Tanya was one of those fellows. And the District 9800's first World Peace Scholar, and she earned a Master's in Public Administration at the International Christian University in Tokyo. That was from 2002 to 2004. This followed a Bachelor of Arts and Postgraduate Diploma in Psychology at the University of Melbourne. Subsequently, Tanya achieved a Doctorate in Philosophy in Peace and Conflict Studies at the University of Queensland, examining the perspectives and approaches of emerging leaders in China on contemporary conflicts. A highlight of Tanya's professional career is her work as a research fellow at the School of Social and Political Sciences when she engaged on the Australian International Conflict Resolution Project, which seeks to enhance the role of conflict prevention and peace building in Australian foreign policy. Beyond that, Tanya has extensively applied her expertise as an analyst and facilitator with a broad range of government and non-government organisations and stakeholders in areas of peace building, political affairs and community engagement. An impressive background, I have to say. The Rotary Peace Symposium was one of several special events planned throughout 2021, and this is primarily what's behind this award of a Paul Harris Fellow. Tanya's lifetime commitment to peace and conflict resolution was amply demonstrated in her extensive effort over 12 months as part of the Rotary Centenary Peace Symposium Organising Committee, which, as you probably recall, was part of our centenary celebrations. Okay, Tanya is an exemplar in the field of peace and conflict resolution. Her efforts reflect the Rotary ideal of service above self and the goals of the Rotary Foundation, and she joins many other distinguished members, volunteers, and as recipients of this Paul Harris Fellow, which will happen to be her second, so it's a sapphire. Tanya, for your sustained commitment to service above self, it gives me great pleasure to present on behalf of the board and members of the Rotary Melbourne your Paul Harris Fellow. If you could come forward while I just go get that. Actually, I'm going to bring it to you when you've finished saying a few words of introduction and feedback from yourself. Thanks very much, Tanya. Good.
Good afternoon, everyone. What an absolute honour to be receiving this Paul Harris recognition. District Governor Hoy, Reg, President Reg, it's been a pleasure getting to know you better through the R100 conference, and to also see so many familiar faces that have been so supportive and generous in their support of me over the past now 2 decades. I would just like to really express the gratitude to the Rotary Foundation and this initiative. We're living in one of the most challenging times in history in terms of conflict, pandemic, tensions, and all sorts of interconnected challenges. And so when the foundation envisioned a program like the Rotary Peace Fellowship program, they deeply understood that everybody needs to contribute to peace from their various sectors from around the world. And the mechanisms on which Rotary is built is an excellent platform from which to bring those people together. But as we know, and as the alumni grow, that we need to keep developing how we engage towards sustainable peace. And for our part, we're really pleased that the Initiative for Peace Building at the University of Melbourne builds on what is an excellent foundation here in Melbourne to bring together a national centre that's regionally grounded and supports peace building work. And we look forward to all the different ways in which we continue to collaborate. And I think Rotary is extraordinary, and I've remained very engaged over these years, only in part because of my gratitude to the fellowship program, but most prominently because I really believe in the program, in the vision, and in the capacity to grow our ability to deal with conflict and inequities more meaningfully. So thank you, and to another 100 years. Thank you.
Let's stay for a photo opportunity.
Thank you.
And the citation.
Thank
if you
you.
might want to display those. I'd now like to call our International Director, Carol Bond, to the podium to further introduce introduce Peace Fellow Peter Powell. Carol, could you come forward? Thank you.
Thank you, President Reg. It is my very great pleasure to introduce Peter Powell to the Rotary Club of Melbourne. Peter is a Rotary Peace Fellow who has recently returned from the Rotary Peace Center Hub at Makerere University in Kampala, Uganda, which awarded him a Rotary Professional Development Certificate. In Melbourne, Peter serves as an accomplished peace builder and mediator within the South Sudanese community. Peter has most recently graduated from Deakin University with a bachelor's degree, and he also holds another bachelor's degree from Victoria University. Currently, Peter works for the Southeast Community Links Incorporated as a head of bicultural inclusion. He has previously worked for Victoria's Electoral Commission as a community educator or democracy ambassador. Peter, I would like to invite you to address the club and share with us more about your experience as a Rotary Peace Fellow. Please make Peter feel welcome.
Good afternoon. As you have heard from Carol, my name is Peter. I recently returned from Uganda. I secondly would like to extend my thanks to the club, the Rotary, especially the Club 9800, who that was the major sponsor and facilitate my participation to the peace building cause in Uganda. As I went to Uganda, my experience was very mixed, as I have been in Australia for more than a while now. I went back as a peace fellow, learning about peace, but I came here as a refugee. And when I went back and see things over there, they were a bit different. What I have learned from there was that the cause was so brilliant. It really showed us, those of us who were doing the cause, complex nature of peace in Africa, and the opportunity to work through addressing this social, religions, political thing through a bottom-up approach. It is a very delicate task, but we have learned some theoretical sort of aspect, contextual program in the class, but we also had the opportunity to visit different places as the field work studied to have a personal sort of engagement and understanding to the lives of the people in the ground. We were also very much engaged by the local Rotary Club in Uganda, which I would say that they are very well informed of the work of Rotary. We were given a Rotary counselors, somebody who can take you around and expose you to the different activities that were conducted by the Rotary Club in Uganda. The work of Rotary in Uganda, to my perspective, is very great. It comprises with a lot of mix. It brings business people together. Some of the politicians too were part of the Rotary work and the activities. And the 5 principles of Rotary, which is a fellowship, serving above self, diversity, proportionalism, and leadership, were very much practiced by the members that engage in those activities. And this fellowship as a part of African community, they love gathering together, serving above self, the generosity, the share food, and do fundraisings. I think they are really doing a very wonderful job. What I would recommend as a part of my experience is that engaging diaspora in Africa to participate in these field building activities would be so critical. With the perspective of diaspora Africa in terms of how peace are being achieved there has become a very critical in terms of criticizing how things are being done over there. And instead of really engaging in this soft way approach, then criticizing. The peace building perspective that I have learned from there was the one that stepping back and be proactive, but not engaging in activism to become as if you are a politician when you are engaging in acquiring peace building activities. So we have learned this sort of thing as if they would be really wonderful if we were to have people from diaspora allowed to engage in those activities. So I would really recommend diaspora African through Rotary work to be engaged and be sponsored. Also understand the work of Rotary, because the work of Rotary and the vision of it, it is the humanity nature of serving people. And that's what required in Africa. I also had the opportunity to engage with my colleagues, people who were in the class with me from different parts of Africa. We were very mixed, some from the West, from the East, from the North, and reflecting on how regions of Africa are now evolving was so wonderful in terms of hearing from each other how things can be dealt with in a way that restore peace in Africa. So it was an opportunity for me to engage with them as the peace fellow that wanted to engage and promote peace with those individuals. Moving forward with peace fellows activities and their proportion and their engagement is where I think they need to be provided with a very practical mentorship. We need mentorship. People who are very, can say, do this. This is how it will work. We got some idea, but to organize them and prioritize them in a way that will move things to a better way, together with resources, we can change things from very far. I have so much respect as I have had this opportunity through my colleague Tanya, who have just received an award She has been so influential, but also supportive of introducing to me the work of Rotary and how I can get involved, but also seeing what I am able to do and connecting it to the Rotary work. This is how I get here. And I think with the work of Rotary, and I'm so supportive by the members here on my way and my coming back, but I am dedicated and committed to continue promoting the work of Rotary because it very much exposed to me now as a way of changing life to the community and in different parts of the world. Thank you for sponsoring me. I have gained a lot, and I am also able to continue with my work to impact change in whatever way I can. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter. That was magnificently delivered, and I think you've warmed our hearts beautifully. Okay, the next item is now to call on Suresh Markandan, the Australian Rotary Health District Chair, to the podium to tell us a little bit about the upcoming event for the Australian Rotary Health. Suresh.
Thank you, Reg. President Reg, DG Dale, fellow Rotarians, isn't it great to be able to meet face to face once again? The past few years has been extremely hard for Victorians and in Australia. The cases of mental illness has exacerbated as a result of the bushfires and COVID-19. So after these 266 days of doom and gloom, I'm here with some exciting news for you. Australian Rotary Health, for the benefit of some of the newer members, is 40 years old. And to date, we have contributed almost $50 million towards research into mental illness. The current focus is on children from 0 to 12. And for the first time in the history of Victoria, District 9800 under the leadership of DG Dale and the Freemasons of Victoria are partnering to host a gala charity banquet on Friday, the 4th of February, 2022. So please keep your dates free. The early bird offer ends on the 30th of this month, so please be quick. Please support it. Rotary Club of Melbourne is the lead club for this program, and we look forward to your support. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Suresh. And let me say, I'm booking a table as we speak. Okay, one notice that I'd like to stress, and it's rapidly approaching, is the Christmas event on the 15th of December. It's going to be a Partners Day, so please encourage your partner to join you for this day. The entertainment is being organised by David Cram. I can tell you it's going to be another amazing event with Mia Sorella as one of our entertainers that day. The flyers are on the table. It will be at level 35. I don't think capacity is going to be a problem. So, but as they say in the classics, be there or be square. It's going to be a great event. Now I get to draw the raffle, and I'm going to ask Kelton to bring it up. I'll hold it and get him to draw the lucky ticket. And I almost forgot, and I've just been nicely reminded that John is a relatively new member, is going to say a few words. So John Saunders, please welcome to the podium for, was it 90 seconds?
90 seconds. In 2009, before we retired from Hong Kong, my wife and I bought a property at Red Hill, 10 acres, with 2 acres of grapes and 200 olive trees. We moved there in 2012. Before you think that only living on a vineyard and an olive grove is an idyllic life. Do your research. In 2014, I made an arrangement with a nearby vineyard to look after the grapes for me at no cost to me, and he got the crop. In 2016, he looked at it and said, this is good enough to do a single vineyard bottling. And he did that. And here is a bottle of the Principia Kindred Hill 2016 Pinot Noir, which James Halliday gave 96 points to, and which earned the winemaker the title of Dark Horse Winery of the Year. I hope whoever wins it enjoys it.
Thank you so much, John. Well, with that unbeatable presentation, I'm going to call the ticket, and it is a green ticket, A05. And our Assistant Governor for the Batman Cluster. Well, there you go. We're sharing the love, Murray. Okay, now for our guest speaker for the day. I'm not sure that Dale Hoy needs a huge introduction because I think he's already pretty well known to many of us. As from my viewpoint, he's been a terrific get for a district governor. He seems to understand how clubs work and he particularly understands how Rotary Melbourne works because he was our assistant governor in the Batman cluster for at least 1 year just recently. And I'd really, without further ado, like to invite Dale to come up and begin his presentation. Thank you, Dale.
Thank you, Reg. I'd first like to I'll say hello to Amanda Wentz, our District Governor-elect, and partner Greg. It's fantastic to see you live. We've had so many Zoom meetings together. It's just nice to physically catch up. I'd also like to acknowledge our winner of our raffle here, Murray Anderson, President Reg. Look, there's so many people I know in the club. It's got a bit of a dilemma, but when I was Assistant Governor, Robert Fisher and Kevin Sheehan, Mary Barry, Austin Burley, Suresh. I know I'm going to miss out on someone. Quinn Scalzo, fantastic, big-hearted individual. There's so many people, so thank you for making me so welcome today. What I'd like to do is maybe, in fact, take a leaf out of your off your Rotary website. You've got Rotary Stories. Just a really brief background about myself and Maureen, and then a little bit about our Rotary vision for the Rotary International, a little bit about the vision, a little bit about also the district and what we're doing. But then I'd love to have more of a question and answer and a conversation about how the district can work with Rotary Melbourne. And it's a bit ironic because in many ways, Rotary Melbourne has such a pervasive influence over our Rotary district. There's been so many Rotarians from this club that have actually been in different roles within the district, as well as just a number of the projects that have originated here have become projects of the district. So it's very pervasive. So it works both ways. In many ways, I think it's a partnership and a very strong partnership. My Rotary story, my background, I'm a country boy. I originally was born in Warrnambool, or was born in Warrnambool. I spent half my schooling in Melbourne and half in Warrnambool. And then did a Bachelor of Business and an MBA, but started off life at Price Waterhouse when it was Price Waterhouse as opposed to PwC. So I was Price Waterhouse for 3.5 years and then went across to the dark side, Coopers and Lybrand for 3.5 years. And then I think 5 minutes after I left, they became one of the same firm, so PwC. And I left and resigned and decided to backpack. So I was getting a little bit tired of charging my life out at 6-minute units. I wanted to travel, and if you're in the tax and staff training part of Coopers and Lybrand, it was very difficult to get international transfer. So I meandered through Southeast Asia, China, Mongolia. It used to be called Russia, the USSR rather than Russia then, Eastern Bloc, and then I started working in London. So I was in London for a couple of years in a stockbroking firm in London and Jersey in the Channel Islands. I should mention before I left Australia, my PwC function, I met a lady called Maureen, and 30 years later, we're still together. So, and then I spent then 10 years living and working in Indonesia. We set up a financial planning business over there. And the original idea was a couple of colleagues from PwC had relocated there and suggested the idea of actually providing personal financial planning advice to senior executives. There was no one doing it. We thought that's a good idea. So he spent 10 years, and I suppose that's where our Rotary connection started. I was doing mentoring for the local MBA students in Jakarta, and Maureen was doing a lot of work through the British Women's Association. Maureen was born in England, so British Women's Association. And I suppose that sort of started our thinking about giving back. And then after 10 years in Indonesia with the son, Alex, we came back to Australia, and I developed an international retirement product for expatriates. The theory was that I didn't want to go back into the chartered accounting profession. I wasn't a very good chartered accountant. All my relationships were around the world. So we developed an international retirement product, which is based in Singapore, Hong Kong, and the Channel Islands. So we work with advisors around the world. So, and then the Rotary part, Maureen and I came back to live in Brighton, and we genuinely wanted to give back to the community, but also connect with the community, because we hadn't lived in Brighton, hadn't lived in Melbourne for many, many years. So I joined the local Brighton Rotary Club, which at the time, believe it or not, in 2004, I didn't realise was a male-only Rotary Club. And it took to 2015-16 before they finally welcomed female members. I was president in 16-17, and one of the conditions of the president in 15-16, Barry, myself, and the following was that we wouldn't put our hand up for president unless they changed, and they changed, which is good. So this year in Brighton, we've got our first female president. It's only taken 49 years, but Brighton, Julie Avery, is starring as she's a fantastic person and doing a great job, which is embarrassing to think it's taken 49 years. But then you look at Rotary International, it's taken, I think next year, Jennifer Jones from Canada will be the first international president. And it's taken, 115 years, but at least it's changing. And the Rotary International Board, so all the Rotary clubs, there's roughly 36,000 Rotary clubs around the world, and they're members of Rotary International. And Rotary International comprises 19 board directors, and 10 years ago, they were 100% male. Well, this year, from the 1st of July, it's 9 females. So things are changing. So the trend's your friend. So look, I've got 3 slides. I'm conscious of time as well. Now, I was told this is our very sophisticated technique today about the slides. I've been told to wave to Jo, and she'll put a slide up. So, Jo. Look, the first slide, I'm sure after now, because Maureen and I were originally going to come to Rotary Melbourne in August, and so here we are in November. So it's been a while, but the theme, I'm sure you're well and surely familiar with, and as you're probably aware by now, the Rotary International president for this year, 21-22, is Sheikh Amita from India, from Calcutta. And his theme is in many ways very simplistic: serve to change lives. But I think service is a key part of what we do. We're a service organisation. The Save Lives part is all about impactful service projects. And I look at the fantastic work Rotary Melbourne does. You look at, Give Every Child a Future, the End Trachoma, all the individual programs for individual people. So you're changing so many lives, not only for one person, but you think of the impact that you're having for that organising vaccinations for 100,000 people in 9 countries throughout Pacific Islands, and you think that not only the physical impact that's having on the child, the family, and the community. So for me, that theme, serve to change lives, is part of the DNA of Rotary Melbourne. I'm going to wave to my friend Jo again. Look there, the vision statement. I'm sure. Look, I know Rotary Melbourne understand the vision statement of Rotary International, because your operational plan, your strategic plan, starts off with the vision statement. So, and for me, the vision of Rotary is all about the compass, or what's the basics of what we're about. And when you look at those words, it's 24 words. I noticed during the week that the Rotary International Board met for the first time in a long time in Chicago, and I noticed at reception, I haven't been to Chicago, been in New York, been in other parts of America, but not Chicago. And they've actually got those 24 words at the reception over there. So, so for me, they're very powerful words. Together we see a world, because we're a global organisation where people unite, and that people can be both Rotarians and friends of Rotary. The fact we're meeting here today to take action, to create lasting change. So that's the same as the theme this year. It's all about impactful change. And then the last part is we do it across the globe. Well, I can talk about the way we've eliminated polio, or close to eliminating polio, over the last 30 years. So I can talk about all the wonderful work of the Rotary Foundation, the impactful work. So globally, it's very clear we do a lot of work. And then locally, all the enormous programs that Rotary Melbourne does, the impact it has here. And then within ourselves, that's really, I think, a conversation about, it could be the satisfaction of giving back, or it could be just the professional development opportunities of being chair of a meeting, being a chair of a committee or being a president. So for me, those 24 words are very powerful. And someone asked me the other day, what makes Rotary different? There's thousands of service organisations, there's thousands of humanitarian organisations. Now, what's our point of difference? And I thought that was a really good question. I thought, well, we're a global, national and local organisation. That's one, so that cuts out some of the people. But then you've got a lot of other organisations like Lions and others that we're an organisation that's based on fellowship and friendship to give service. I mean, Red Cross doesn't do that, so that's another way of point of difference. But I think one of the key things, and it was articulated by Tanya today, is the Rotary Foundation. I mean, I think that there's not many not-for-profits, not many international service organisations have their own global charity that has such a major impact. So for me, that's the point of difference. And it's a broader conversation I see all the time, is that a lot of Rotarians aren't always very strong at their elevator pitch. You know, what's Rotary about? Because it's such a big, complex animal. So I think there's the starting point for that elevator pitch in many ways is those words over there. The last slide from my friend who's sprinting over to the computer. Just a little bit about that, what we're doing at District. In the same way that Rotary Melbourne has a very detailed operational plan and strategic plan, this is an abbreviated version of our planning. And look, District obviously is well, around the world, there's 525 districts. I thought there was a few more, but some districts, a former district governor told me yesterday, a few of the districts are actually been merging recently, because once you get under 1,100 members in a district, there's a merger conversation. So our district has about a bit over 2,050 members. So there's 525 districts around the world. And the whole idea of the district is there to work, to bring clubs together within that district to actually have more impact and have more reach. And so for us, that district's 9,800. There's 64 Rotary clubs. There's 14 in regional Victoria, up towards Moama, Echuca, Moama, and the Bendigo regions. And we've got obviously 50 clubs in metropolitan Melbourne. And so the whole purpose of a district is to try and get clubs working together and pool resources and have more impact. That's what it's about. And in terms of the goal for the district, I think you could argue it's also the goal for Rotary Melbourne. It's just to be relevant, because, you know, if you're not relevant, what's the point? So look, as a district, there's a million things in Rotary we can do. Is you've got to prioritise. So we've got 4 priorities for the next 12 months and beyond. And on that PowerPoint, I've got the word significant projects. And what I mean by that is that our district has some fantastic projects, but so often we see that Rotarians are so busy working in the project, they're not spending a lot of time working on the project to have more impact. So we've been working with a number of different project leaders. In fact, Bob Glindeman's one. Bob's doing a fantastic job at donations in kind. And we've been talking to Bob about different ways that the district might be able to help support all the fantastic work that Bob's doing, more strategic. In other words, some of the issues such as providing a stronger advocacy to get the word out about DIK throughout the district, the multi-district, maybe a conversation about corporate branding, corporate sponsorship, maybe a conversation about access to grants. So we've got a number of different models that we're doing for different projects in our district. It could be an advisory group, which comprises people from the project and some of the expertise of our district. We've also been talking to KPMG, which I'll talk about in a moment, to provide pro bono support. So it's ways to help some of our big projects in our district to have more impact. The second one there is I call corporate connectedness. And what I mean by that is, rather than trying Rotary clubs to do everything themselves, to actually reach out to different groups. So in the corporate space, probably the best example I can give is that Rotary Club of Carlton has got a young member by the name of Danielle Shute. She's in her mid-20s and working at KPMG. And she was a former youth exchange student, and she reached out to the members of Rotary Club of Carlton and said, would Rotary be interested in actually having KPMG volunteer their time in the month of October? So we, at short notice, put together about 20 projects, 20 clubs put together projects. So KPMG in the month of October provided both unskilled and skilled volunteering, and that worked really well. We had one of our projects in our district is the Camberwell Market. which generates used to pre-COVID close to $1 million a year. But a lot of people don't know it's connected to Rotary. So the conversation was for the KPMG, can you help us come up with a public image strategy to raise the profile of Rotary within the Camberwell market? So that was done a few weeks ago. So it was a fantastic report coming out of it. And there was also other KPMG projects which were unskilled projects. But what came out of it was that a strong connection between a corporate and Rotary. They want to do more. And so we're talking to them at the moment about looking at doing more pro bono work. In other words, helping us with specific projects and doing more of an ongoing role, because their volunteer program was only in the month of October, but obviously our needs go beyond 1 month. So that's quite a powerful connection that we've developed just in the last few months, and all start with an alumni of Rotary. So a person that went through one of our programs. The other item I've got on there is alumni. So over to you. But not all, a lot of people, a lot of alumni don't, well, a lot of Rotarians that go through our programs don't stay connected with Rotary. So, and the question is, well, why not? Often when they leave the programs, they've got a very strong connection with Rotary, but, you know, life gets in the way, you know, whether it be family or business or whatever. So we've been working on strategies on how can we keep people connected to Rotary? Is it professional development opportunities? Is it a cause-based Rotary Club? What actually is going to keep people connected in some shape or form? So there's a lot of work going on. And the last one, community connectedness, is rather than do everything yourself, you know, partner with different organisations. I know this club has a strong connection with the Melbourne City Council, and often you see clubs trying to do everything, whereas there's opportunities to get access to financial and other resources through the community. My Rotary Club Brighton, there's a lady there called Jo Kwok, and she approached our local Bayside Council for funding a number of philanthropics and has created a program for young females between the age of 18 and 25. So brings through about 100 people, and it's all about young people identifying a social issue, turning that into a social enterprise, and then pitching it, and then getting funding for it. And that's been fantastic. So all that funding, about $50,000, came from the community. It didn't come from Brighton Rotary. So Brighton Rotary, it cost Brighton Rotary zero. So for me, there's a really big conversation about how clubs can actually tap into other people's resources. So the last two, and I'll get off the slides, is Pathway to Rotary. In Rotary, we have Interact clubs, Rotaract clubs, and Rotary clubs. In our district, we've got 7 Interact clubs. The biggest is McRob, the select girls' school. There's 250 young females in that club. And they normally join the club, which is, so an Interact club is a mini Rotary club. They join at year 9, and they normally finish up at year 11, do year 12, go on and be successful at university. So there's no ongoing connection with Rotary. So one of our conversations at the moment is to try and, again, look at ways to try and keep interactors connected to our organisation. Is it a cause-based Rotary club? Is it part of the Rotaract club? Is it what's in it for them? That's what the conversation's about. So we're doing a lot of work in that space. And the last part of our plan, and I'll get on to talking about more Rotary Melbourne, is I call it district effectiveness, which sounds really boring, I know, but it's really about how can the district support the clubs? What other things can we do to add value to the clubs? And some of the things we've been doing this year, or developing the moment, is a public image toolkit, because so often you see clubs are really good at community service work. They're well connected, they've got big hearts, but they're really awful at telling their stories. And I see that all the time. So we're not very good at telling the community what we're about. And of course, it's not to brag, it's more the fact that if you tell people the impact of what you're doing, well, then you might attract volunteers and might attract other people. And we're not, unfortunately, I think that's an area we could do a lot more. The other thing we're putting together is a grants toolkit, so to make it easier for clubs to tap into other people's money. And there's a real art and a skill associated with applying for grant funds, whether it be through the local councils or through the philanthropic sector. So there's a huge conversation there. There's a massive amount of resource out there in the world. And again, you see Rotary clubs that have been struggling through COVID, and you think there's other people that can help you, but you can go out there and partner and work with other groups. So look, there are other things we've been doing. It's probably the biggest in our district is we've been creating a mentoring platform. Victorian government 12 months ago, or less than 12 months ago now, reached out to the private sector and said, we have a problem with international students. We have, pre-COVID, it was a bit under $14 billion to the Victorian economy. And unfortunately, your average international student has a good academic experience, but they're not socially connected. They're not connecting with the community. So we put in an application with a company called Outcome Life, and they work with internships for university students. We competed against 65 other applications, and we were successful. So it's about $130,000 worth of funding. We've been developing the platform. We've done a few pilots already. So we've had 10 international students, 10 Rotarians. We're about to do another 50 in the first couple of months of next year. And then the Victorian government wants to roll that out to thousands of students. So it's quite a significant project. But here's another example of all of a sudden it needs to be big. We don't always have the expertise. So again, we're asking KPMG whether they could help us make it, take it to another level. So there's some, I could talk about other things we're doing in terms of communication. A couple of years ago, our district governor, Grant Hocking, started a morning tea event. So we go around the district and talk to different areas of our district, and that worked really well, just to share ideas and get an idea of how we could help as a district. And then last year, Philip Archer turned that into an online because of COVID. And so this year we've done it again twice, and we had 170 people turn up the first time, which I was quite amazed by, but admittedly it was right in the middle of COVID, and probably most people didn't have anything else to do, I suppose. But it actually was a really good, powerful session because it allowed clubs to start connecting and projects to connect. So that's been a really effective tool to get the word out among the 64 clubs. But there's lots of other things I could talk about, but I'd love to hear questions and any feedback from people. Have we got any time or not? Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, am I still on screen? Carried away here.
No, we've now put the gallery up because this week our first questioner is going to be Norman Bay, who has a question on behalf of the gallery. Norman, would you like to pose your question?
Sure. Hello, DG Dale. Thanks for your address. In our pre-meeting, we were talking about Rotary Park, among other subjects, and the issue came up about the names of the clusters. Now, I appreciate this is without notice, but is anybody considering changing the names of the clusters so they do not give any offence to our Indigenous fellow citizens?
Well, all I can say is, Amanda, over to you. Just joking. Well, I suppose I could start off by saying in other districts, they call it district number 1, 2, 3, 4. So I think we've been a bit more innovative with at least having names. Look, it's probably a question to take offline. I hadn't thought that, to be quite honest, Norman, but it's been historic. Sometimes it's been predicated on the council areas or broad connection with the particular communities that those clubs are in. But can I take that offline? It's a good question. I don't have a good answer, but
absolutely, it just turned up in conversation.
Yeah,
a question on notice.
I know, but but you know, some of these have been there for a long time, historical names, and as I say, there's some logic to them. They're often reflecting some connection to the areas that they're in. So
fantastic. Let's now call on Peter Hollingworth to ask the next question from within the room.
President Dale, thank you very much. That rang so many bells, I think, for all of us. I think my question, it's a sort of question, but it's when I hear the same language like community and connectedness, I'm reminded of some work that we started, I think back in about 2012, originally as a partnership with the Brotherhood of St. Lawrence. And we produced a sort of action plan, which was described as PACE, Partnerships Advancing Community Education. We tried it around our district, and there was a range of interesting responses, with most people saying, we're already doing that. So we had to rework it, and it changed its name and it's changed its format. It was then called Rotary Connects. As you know, it was worked around the district, and it's just a couple of years since, I think it's all gone a bit quiet. And I'm raising this question because I think I'm the only one of our committee here. And I just want to raise this and say, look, this thing was worked and reworked and reshaped with lots of consultations, and it's gone quiet like everything else. And I'd just love to hear how you think a toolbox of this kind can be integrated with all the other things you've talked about.
Reg would like to say something first, and then I'll respond.
Just, Peter, it's probably not been something we've made a big deal of in the club, but let me let me say this: Rotary Connects is institutionalised in our project approval process that the board uses. The current templates are fundamentally connected to Rotary Connects, and no project gets approved unless it measures up to the systemic requirements of Rotary Connect. So we've put it into action, and really we're not putting as much effort into the development of it, but it's actually in operation. And I've got to say, the quality of proposals coming forward to the board since that's been done, I think it's been dramatically improved. So there is a legacy, and it continues. Dale.
Peter, it's a good reminder, though. It's a fantastic methodology that, I mean, a lot of clubs might have a lot of enthusiasm for a project, but sometimes the structures are not in place to be able to. So, you know, you can be inefficient, you can be enthusiastically inefficient, if you like. So I think that's a good reminder to look at how we might be able to use that more broadly outside the club. I know it has been in some clubs. But the other point on resources, I mean, some clubs are aging. The amount of work the community work is still the same or more. So to me, part of the conversation is about how can you tap into the community resources. There's a lot of resources out there, whether it be funding or funding resources for what I mentioned before, or just the strategies around volunteerism. They don't all have to become members of the club, but you know, membership is, well, they say membership is an outcome of doing everything else properly. Some may become members, but initially it's a conversation about just getting engagement, isn't it? Getting other members involved in the quality. I mean, I looked at your annual report yesterday from last year, and you've got the massive amount of projects this club does, and that not only in the club, but more broadly, that have an impact on the whole district. It's fantastic. There's an enormous amount of IP in this club that is shared all the time through our whole district, and it's just pervasive. That's what I was saying before. In many ways, coming to here is not a conversation about district resource supporting Rotary Melbourne. It's a conversation about we're partners and how do we work together. So
I'm going to take President's prerogative and ask a question of Dale, and this is about an observation I made for the first time at the Zone 8 conference when past International President Barry Rassin presented on a pretty major reconfiguration of the field structure of Rotary, and in that there was an experimental move to reshaping districts, or what happened at the district level. Are you in a position to tell us any more about that, Dale?
thank you so much for that question, Rich. Look, philosophically, there is a regionalisation. Well, there's a particular committee that's applying, a Rotary International applying for a particular model, but it's, at its essence, it's about changing the infrastructure in all the different layers of Rotary, and that includes the districts. So it's allowing clubs to be more focused on projects and have all the bureaucracy of clubs being done elsewhere. I mean, that's the problem. Is it's a very slow process. It's very difficult, given the structure of Rotary, to get things in place quickly. So that's the issue at the moment. For the foreseeable future, the next year or two, the districts will stay the same. And if anything does develop and the board does approve a pilot, it'll just simply be a pilot. So the existing structures, many of which will stay the same. But there's an appetite for change. You know, the models, they've been there for 100 X number of years, 115 years. There has to be differences in the model. I also think the other aspect of it is to have a more flexible model at the club level, to be honest, to have, you know, more cause-based Rotary clubs, to make it, like, if being politically incorrect here, to rather than have the model based on active and honorary members. I think, you know, if I was at Telstra, I'd have, my segment would be maybe 200 different sectors. You'd have different pricing for different types of people you're engaging with. And unfortunately, in Rotary, we don't have that sort of model. So I think there's a lot of work, it's work in progress. There's a lot going on, but it's not sort of ready for active.
Sorry
promotion.
for that unprepared
Oh, that's
question.
all right. No problem.
Okay, I think our final question for the day is from past President Robert Fisher.
Dale, as you well know, so many roles in Rotary last but 1 year. And I wonder if you could look ahead and tell us what success will look like for you at the end of your year as our DG.
Thank you, Robert. The success is all about specific goals under those 4 priorities. So, for example, I talk about the significant projects, you know, to actually provide some support for 3 or 4 or 5 really key projects in our district, to either have project teams or an advisory group or KPMG helping add more value to those projects. So for me, that's the first thing. So really taking those projects to another level in many ways to offer third-party support. In terms of the community connectedness, we've been working really closely on that corporate model with KPMG. I'd love that to sort of develop further so that we've actually got a template that we can use for other corporate relationships, because so far we've found that KPMG are really enjoying the Rotary connection, and I think there's a massive resource there, so we can actually get a proper corporate partnership model. The alumni, I think it's a conversation about having a proper strategy to keep the engagement going, keeping people connected to our organisation. On the community side, it's more the community connectedness. That's more about providing some of the basic skills for clubs so they can tap into other people's money and resources. Pathways to Rotary for me is trying to have some strong, maybe a cause-based Rotary club, or some very clear reasons why people stay after interacting to Rotaract. And then on the district effectiveness side, I think it's just looking for ways to keep helping and support the clubs. We're finding that you can help clubs start working together more closely, put together public image toolkits and other useful things that can help them do more for their communities. So we've got 4 priorities, a number of goals under those, and I'll be having a good hard look at myself in the mirror in June next year.
I think we all will be. Okay, Kevin Sheehan has the last question. Thanks very much, Kevin.
District Governor, hats off to you for taking on that role. I thought it was tough enough to be president of a club, but the centenary year of 2021 lives on. We haven't even got to December yet, so we've got a little while to go. What you did last Sunday was obviously, Rotarians and guests would like to know, I'm sure, was to be commended. You dedicated a major significant project of 2 Rotary clubs that came together under the banner of R100 Centenary, and a terrific park, children's park on the Yarra River there at Hawthorn. As you know, our call when we led the charge on the centenary years ago was to do something. You can always have a party, and to a certain extent COVID buggered that up, but to do something. And that call went out to so many clubs, and so many clubs have done a lot. In your district, I know that you're doing a stock take of what the clubs have done, so you can accolade those clubs and make them feel part of what was the centenary year. I'm hoping you'll take that further to your other district governors, the colleague that you know, and let's get an Australia-wide compilation of all those projects, because that's what we're here for. More of a speech than a question, but go for it.
Well, there's still centennial projects, as you articulated. Last Sunday was a fantastic example. So you've got an example of 6 Rotary clubs in the Burundara area working with Burundara City Council and other community groups to come up with a community asset. So, and it was a centennial project. Brighton, that project I mentioned before, with the 100 young females going through that entrepreneurial program, is a centennial project. I was up at Rochester the other day, and they're reconfiguring the windmill that sits in their Rotary Park. It's a centennial project. So you know, your work, Hugh's work in the early days in creating the mechanics and the scalability is still living on. So, but I think your idea of actually having a structure to reassess all the projects, because they're great stories. They have a life of their own, to say this is what we've actually achieved, and this is the reason why you should be attracted to looking at us as a preferred service organisation. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much, District Governor Dale. It's been a very informative address and a great Q&A. And in our customary way, I'm going to make a presentation which includes 3 gifts. One of them are the limited edition R100 socks manufactured by Wilderness Wear. They come with a guarantee, they never wear out. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the history of Rotary Melbourne, written by Owen Parmity, and that is well worth a read. It has saved my life several times this year already. And thirdly, more recently produced stories of Rotary Melbourne's first 100 years, and we're looking forward to our second. And I think we want the whole of Rotary to really prosper in the next 100 years. Dale, thanks for your contribution today, and please accept this with our thanks.
Thank you.
And we will see you, no doubt, many more times.
Thank you, everyone, for making me so welcome today.
Okay, now to close the meeting, I'd firstly like to say a big thank you to those who helped set today's meeting up. The process for getting this meeting operational so that we can have a significant number of people from on Zoom and in the room is a little more complicated. We're still learning our way, and I think we've made a noticeable improvement since last week. And I'd like to thank particularly Kelton Dennis and Debbie Fu, but also Ted Garland and others on the setup team for the great work you've done. Secondly, I'd like to say a big thanks to Adrian Nelson for stepping up as our Master of Ceremonies today. And also I'd like to thank our Thanksgiver, who all of a sudden my aging brain has, Phil Cornish, who came in remotely first time. That may be why I wasn't taking it in as effectively as I should have, but Phil has showed us that actually enables remote participation as part of the ceremonies as well. So all in all, a great meeting. A reminder that next week our guest speaker is Andrew Ma, the newly appointed entrepreneur and honorary consul of East Timor. Our meeting will be held here at number 35 and on Zoom, as we're now becoming accustomed. I hope you can join us. Now I'm going to call on everyone to join me in singing our closing anthem, the national anthem.